More than you find in the usual crowd. How many of you have raised them in New York City? Okay, good. All right, so, but I'm talking to all of you, not just you who've raised kids in New York City. One of the most difficult things is teaching them how to get around. Because the last thing in the world that you want to do is hover over them, as parents tend to do these days. They don't even let them go next door in the suburbs. So I determined that I wanted to raise my kids here in New York City, but part of that is they've got to take the subway. You know, that's the way you get around. You don't get around in a taxi, you don't get around in an Uber, you get around in the subway. So I taught them, two kids, my daughter and my son. My daughter was 10, my son was 8. I taught them how to take the New York City subway to school in the morning. And every morning, I would go with them. Before I went to work, I would take them to school and I would teach them, here's where you stand on the platform, and here's where you transfer, and here's where the other subway that you pick up, and if it doesn't come, here's what you do. So I gave them all these lessons on how to get to school safely. People thought I was crazy. People thought I'm gonna report you to the child welfare authorities because, you know, you don't do that to children. You don't let them on their own ride the subway when they're 10 and 8, but I did. So I gave them survival training. And then I had confidence that they knew what they were doing. So they did it. There were no incidents. I felt very successful. Until about 6 years later, when my son was 14, and it was the middle of the day, and for some reason, I was in the subway. It was 2:30 in the afternoon. And there was my son. Now, you have to picture him. He was 14 years old, but he looked like he was about 10. At the time, he was 4'8", and he weighed around 75 pounds. So, those of you who are parents know that that is not just small. That is like cartoonishly small for a 14-year-old. And I see him there on the subway, and he's reading a book, and I say to myself, I wonder if he remembers survival training. So I went up behind him, and I need a volunteer for this.
Sure.
You might,
Gladly.
I went up behind him. Now you're reading a book.
Okay.
Okay? Went up behind him, and I went. So lesson 1 was, it didn't happen. Somebody hits you from behind, don't make an issue out of it, don't make eye contact with them. It didn't happen. So I hit him, and he keeps reading. He remembers lesson 1. So let's see if he remembers 2. Lesson 2. Lesson 2 was, maybe it wasn't an accident. So he does remember lesson 2, maybe it wasn't an accident, but separate yourself. And he walks down, you know, as far as he can get to the next page, and he's sitting and he keeps reading. And then I thought, boy, that's my boy. He remembered lesson 1, he remembers lesson 2, let's see if he remembered lesson 3. So I start walking up to him. Now lesson 3 is, be prepared to defend yourself. And I see that he's looking at his book, but his peripheral vision is looking at something walking up close to him, and it's me. And he squares off, and he looks at me, and he hits me. And I said, son, I deserve that. You remembered all 3 lessons. So he made it through New York City. He now lives in San Francisco. And by the way, he's now 6'2" and he weighs 175 pounds.